On the day of the final divorce hearing, my husband James publicly accused me of being a negligent mother and demanded full custody of our 8-year-old daughter. I was about to lose everything: my house, my dignity, and most importantly, my Lily. But then, just when the judge was about to pass the sentence, my daughter stood up in the back of the room. She held up her old tablet with the cracked screen and said something that stopped my heart. "Your Honor, I recorded something that my mom does not know about. Can I show it? But before we continue, check if you have subscribed to the Elderly Stories channel and write in the comments where you are watching this video from. We love knowing how far our stories are reaching. I always believed my marriage was like those stories you see in movies. Not perfect, but happy enough. James was loving at the beginning, hardworking, and together we built a life that seemed solid. We had our own house in a quiet, middle-class neighborhood in Chicago, a small garden but well taken care of where Lily played every afternoon, and that comfortable routine that made me believe we were okay, that we were a real family. But I was very wrong. It all began to crumble silently, like a wall with invisible cracks that spread until one day everything comes crashing down. James started changing little by little, so slowly that at first I did not even notice. First, it was the overtime hours at work that became more and more frequent. Then came the business trips that lasted entire weeks. He would arrive late, always too tired to talk. And when I tried to ask him about his day or how he felt, I received only short and evasive answers. "It was normal, Sarah, just work." "I am tired. We will talk another day." "You would not understand. It is office stuff." And I like a fool believed him. Or rather, I wanted to believe him. Because the alternative, admitting that my marriage was ending, was too terrible to face. I tried so hard to keep everything perfect. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning every day before the alarm went off to prepare the breakfast that he barely touched. Hot, fresh coffee toast, just how he liked it. Fresh fruit cut into small pieces. I took Lily to school. I ran back to clean the whole house, do the grocery shopping, pay the bills, take care of the garden. In the afternoon, I picked up Lily. I helped her with homework. I played with her. I prepared an elaborate dinner that James ate in silence while looking at his phone. All this with that naive thought, almost pathetic, that if I was a better wife, a flawless housewife, a dedicated mother, he would look at me like before, like in those first years when he still smiled, when he hugged me without me asking, when he still said he loved me. What a ridiculous illusion. Months passed and the distance between us only increased. James started going to sleep later and later, always claiming he had urgent work to finish. But I saw the light of his office on until the early hours of the morning. And sometimes when I walked down the hall, I heard him talking on the phone in a low voice, laughing in a way he had not laughed with me for years. I started to get suspicious. Of course, I'm not completely blind. But every time the suspicion grew, I convinced myself that I was being paranoid, insecure, that the problem was me. After all, why would a successful man like James cheat on me? I was just a housewife with no career, no glamour, nothing special. He could have any woman. So why would he stay with me if he did not want to? This twisted logic kept me in denial for a long time. One Tuesday afternoon, a completely normal day, everything changed suddenly. It was around 4 in the afternoon, and I was in the kitchen preparing a snack for Lily when I heard the garage door open. It seemed strange because James never arrived before 7, sometimes 8. I thought maybe he had forgotten something important. But when he walked through the door, the expression on his face was not that of someone who had forgotten something. It was the face of someone who had made a decision that would change everything. He did not even take off his shoes, which was already weird because he was obsessive about keeping the house clean. He simply threw his leather briefcase onto the living room sofa with a dry thud and called me. "Sarah, come here. I need to speak with you." His tone of voice was cold, impersonal, as if he were speaking to an employee who was about to be fired. My heart started beating faster. I dried my hands on the kitchen towel and walked slowly toward the living room, feeling a knot in my stomach that grew with every step. "What happened?" I asked, trying to keep my voice normal, but it came out trembling. He stood up with his arms crossed, looking at me with those eyes that I once loved, and that now looked like those of a stranger. Then, without any preparation, without a minimum of delicacy or consideration, for the 13 years we spent together, for the vows we made in church, for the daughter we raised, he told me, "Sarah, I want a divorce." The words fell on me like a bucket of ice water in the middle of winter. I felt my entire body freeze. My breathing failed. My vision blurred. I could not say anything. I just stood there, looking at him, waiting, begging in silence for him to say it was a bad joke, that he was stressed, that this was not what he meant. But he continued, and every phrase that came out of his mouth was sharper, crueler than the last. "I cannot stand this life anymore, Sarah. You are complacent. You do nothing but stay at home spending my money. The house is a mess. You do not take good care of anything. And Lily is becoming spoiled, overprotected. You are hurting her development." Every word was a stab wound. I wanted to scream. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to say that all of that was a lie, that I dedicated every second of my life to this house and our daughter. But my voice would not come out. It was trapped in my throat, along with the crying I fought to hold back. "But James, we can talk. We can try to solve it. We can go to couples therapy. I can change whatever you want. Just tell me what I did wrong." My voice came out like a desperate whisper, begging in a way that embarrasses me to this day. He shook his head with impatience, as if I were a silly little girl who did not understand something obvious. "There is nothing to solve, Sarah. I have already made my decision. My lawyer will get in touch with you in the next few days." "It would be best if you look for a lawyer too." And then he simply took the briefcase, went up the stairs, and went to the guest room where he had started sleeping a few weeks before, claiming that my snoring bothered him. I stayed there, standing in the middle of the living room, listening to the door close upstairs, feeling my entire world collapse around me. I spent that whole night awake, sitting on the empty bed that was once ours, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand what had happened, what I had done so wrong to deserve that. Was I really a failed wife? Had I been so blind to the point of not realizing I was losing my husband? The questions spun in my head without stopping torturing me, making me doubt everything I thought I knew about myself. 3 days later, a courier rang the doorbell. I was washing the lunch dishes when I heard the noise. I dried my hands and opened the door. The young man handed me a large manila envelope, official-looking, with the logo of a law firm stamped on the top right corner. "Delivery for Sarah Peterson." "That is me," I answered with a weak voice. He made me sign a paper and left. I stood there in the doorway holding that envelope as if it were a bomb about to explode. My hands were shaking so much that I struggled to tear the seal. Inside was a thick stack of papers. The first page had a title in large formal letters, "Contested Divorce Petition." I read the first lines and felt my legs give out. Plaintiff, James Peterson. Defendant, Sarah Peterson. Reason, proven inability of the wife to fulfill her marital and maternal obligations. The words kept dancing in front of me. Inability, failure, negligence. Every legal term was a stone being thrown at me, sinking me deeper and deeper. I kept reading. Every page worse than the last. James was not just asking for a divorce. He was destroying me completely, methodically, with elaborate and detailed accusations. He alleged that I neglected domestic chores, that the house was always dirty and disorganized. He attached photos as proof, photos that I had never seen anyone take, showing the kitchen with piled-up dishes, the living room with scattered toys, the bedroom with clothes on the bed. He alleged that I spent money irresponsibly and uncontrollably. He attached statements from the additional credit card that was in my name, showing purchases in expensive stores, sophisticated restaurants, jewelry, things that I never ever had bought. And then came the part that paralyzed my heart completely. James demanded full custody of Lily. The reasoning was detailed over several pages. He alleged that I had untreated emotional problems, that I was excessively controlling and overprotective, that I was harming the healthy psychological development of the child. He said that Lily needed a stable environment that I was not in a condition to provide, and more. He demanded all marital assets, the house, the car, the savings, everything. He alleged that they were the exclusive fruit of his work, that I had contributed nothing financially, that therefore I had no right to anything. He wanted to leave me with nothing, no house, no money, no dignity, and without my daughter. It was in that moment that I collapsed completely. My legs gave way and I fell sitting right there on the cold floor of the hallway with the papers scattered around me. I cried in a way I had never cried before, deep and desperate sobs that left me breathless. That made my entire body shake. "Mommy?" The scared little voice of Lily made me lift my head. She was standing at the end of the hall, her eyes wide with worry, clutching her favorite teddy bear against her chest. I tried quickly to dry my tears and force a smile, but it was useless. My face was soaked, my eyes swollen. "Everything is okay, my love. Mommy just dropped some papers here." But Lily was not stupid. Even at only 8 years old, she knew when something was very wrong. She walked toward me slowly and sat on my lap, hugging me tight, as if she wanted to protect me from something she did not even understand well. "You are sad because of Daddy, right?" The way she said it with that small but perceptive voice broke my heart even more. I hugged my daughter with all the strength I had, hiding my face in her hair, and just whispered, "I love you so much, my princess, so much." That night, after putting Lily to bed, I locked myself in the bathroom and cried until I had no more tears. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized myself. My eyes were red and swollen, my face pale and thin, my expression defeated. How had I reached this point? How could the man I married, the father of my daughter, be doing this to me? The next morning, I woke up determined not to let myself be destroyed without a fight. If James wanted war, I was going to fight. Not for me. I was already destroyed. But for Lily. My daughter was all I had left, and I was not going to let him take her from me without resistance. I called my sister Karen and told her everything between sobs. She was furious. She insulted James in every way possible, and she gave me the contact of a lawyer who had helped a friend of hers in a complicated divorce case. Her name is Linda Stevenson. She is good, Sarah. Call today. I took the phone with trembling hands and called. The secretary gave me an appointment for the next day. I spent that whole day in a state of anxiety, barely able to eat or do anything productive. Lawyer Linda's office was in an old building downtown, one of those that had seen better days. 3rd floor, no elevator. I climbed the stairs with a tight heart, feeling that every step took me deeper into a nightmare from which I could not wake up. The waiting room was small and simple, with old plastic chairs and outdated magazines on a coffee table. I waited only a few minutes before they called me. Linda was a brunette woman of about 50 years with graying hair tied in a low bun and reading glasses hanging from a chain on her neck. She wore a brown blazer over a cream blouse, and she had a firm but kind look that immediately made me feel I could trust her. "Sit here, Sarah," she said, pointing to a chair in front of her desk full of files. "Tell me what is happening." And I told her. Everything. The words came out rushed, mixed with tears, but I told every detail. The sudden divorce request, the absurd accusations, the manipulated photos, the credit card expenses I did not make, and mainly the request for full custody of Lily. Linda listened to me in silence, taking notes on a yellow pad, occasionally nodding her head but never interrupting me. When I finished, she let out a long sigh and took off her glasses, rubbing her eyes with fatigue. "Sarah, I will be very honest with you because it is no use giving you false hope. Your husband prepared this very, very well. He has probably been planning it for months, maybe even more than a year." I felt my stomach turn. "He has an expensive lawyer, very expensive," she continued. "Robert Stone. I know his work. He is a competent man, but unscrupulous. He plays dirty, he manipulates evidence, he intimidates witnesses, and he always wins. So I do not have a chance." My voice came out weak, defeated. "I did not say that." Linda leaned forward, looking at me seriously. "I said it will be difficult, very difficult, but not impossible. We are going to fight Sarah. I am not going to let you lose your daughter without fighting until the end." She opened the copy of the file that I had brought and began to examine page by page, making notes in the margins, frowning at some points. "Those photos of the house, do you remember when they were taken?" she asked, turning the document toward me. I looked at the images and my heart shrank. I recognized them immediately. It was about 2 months ago. I was very sick, bad flu and high fever. I was practically in bed for almost a week. The house got messy because I did not have the strength to clean, and James refused to help me. He said he had a lot of work. Linda wrote that down. "And did you go to the doctor? Do you have any note prescription, anything that proves you were sick?" I shook my head. "No, I just bought medicine at the pharmacy." "I thought I would get better on my own," she sighed. "Without medical documentation, it is hard to prove. It is your word against the photos." She flipped through a few more pages and stopped at the credit card statements. "And these purchases, do you recognize any?" I examined the card. "Brand name bags, jewelry, dinners at expensive restaurants. I never bought any of that. That card was in my name, but it was an additional one. James used it often. He said his main card was always at the limit because of office expenses." "Did you ever question his spending?" "No. I trusted him." He was my husband. Linda noted a few more things and then reached the part I feared most, the psychological report. "This is the most damaging thing for your case," she said, reading the document with attention. "It is a report signed by a clinical psychologist named Dr. Chloe Andrews. It says here that she made naturalistic observations of your behavior with Lily in public environments during the last 3 months." "But I have never seen that woman in my life," I protested, feeling indignation burn in my chest. "How can she make a psychological report about me without even talking to me?" "Naturalistic observations are legally accepted," Linda explained with a bitter expression. "The idea is that the person acts more authentically when they do not know they are being observed. And this Dr. Chloe has an impeccable resume. Look here." She turned the document. There was a whole page listing the psychologist's credentials. Degree from a renowned public university master's. Specialization, active registration with the Psychology Board. Several publications in scientific journals. "She seems extremely legitimate," continued Linda, "and what she wrote in the report is devastating. She says you demonstrate patterns of emotional instability, that you yell at Lily in public, that you ignore her when the child needs attention, that you have exaggerated and hysterical reactions to simple situations." "But that is all a lie," I screamed, feeling tears of rage burn in my eyes. "I never treated my daughter that way." "I believe you, Sarah," Linda said softly, "but proving she is lying will be very difficult. It is the word of a respected professional against your word. In the eyes of the law, who do you think will seem more reliable?" The question hung in the air like a sentence. I knew the answer. A housewife without a career, without college studies, accused of negligence by her own husband, against a doctor-psychologist with impeccable credentials. It was not even a competition. "How much do you charge, Linda?" I asked, changing the subject because I could not stand thinking about that fake report anymore. Linda mentioned a value that was much more than I could pay. My face must have given away my desperation because she quickly added, "But we can set up a payment plan, Sarah, in as many installments as you can manage." "I am not going to leave you without a defense." I felt a wave of gratitude that almost made me cry again. After so much cruelty, that kindness from a stranger moved me deeply. "Thank you." It was all I could say. I left that office feeling a little less lost, but still deeply scared. The battle was just beginning, and I was already exhausted even before taking the first step. In the days that followed, the tension at home became absolutely unbearable. James had not left the house. He was still living there, but like a hostile stranger. He slept in the guest room. He ate at different times than me. He avoided any interaction that was not strictly necessary. And in front of Lily, he was the perfect father. It was there that I realized it was all calculated, part of a bigger plan. James started bringing expensive gifts to Lily almost every day. a giant imported doll, a brand new state-of-the-art tablet, brand name clothes, expensive sneakers, things I could never buy her because I lived off the monthly allowance he gave me, which barely covered the basic expenses of the house and school. He took Lily on outings to the luxury mall, to the most expensive amusement park in the city, to sophisticated restaurants, and he always came back commenting in front of her, "Wow, Princess, that restaurant was much better than the food at home, right? Oh, how great that Daddy can give you these cool things you deserve." Every phrase was a disguised stab, a subtle way to undermine my authority and my value as a mother. And the worst is that I saw it working. Lily started to feel confused, divided. She still loved me, I knew that, but she also loved all the attention and gifts her father was giving her. James also started to actively interfere in my relationship with her. If I asked Lily to clean her room, he appeared and said, "Leave it, Princess. You do not have to do that now. You can keep playing." If I prepared dinner with love, he made a disgusted face and ordered takeout, saying out loud, "How about we eat pizza today, Lily? That delicious pizza you love." This food here does not look very appetizing. If I tried to help Lily with homework, he interrupted me. "Let me teach her, Sarah. You always complicate things too much and confuse the girl." Every gesture, every word was meticulously chosen to make me look incompetent, unnecessary, useless. And I felt exactly like that. One night this went too far. It was around 8 at night, the time when Lily was normally already home, bathed and eating dinner. But that day she did not come back from school at the normal time. I called the school and they told me her father had picked her up. I felt my heart race. I called James once, twice, 5, 10 times. He did not answer. The hours passed with a torturous slowness. 7 at night, 8, 9. I was practically going crazy with worry, walking from one side to the other in the living room, checking the phone every 10 seconds, looking out the window expecting to see his car arrive. It was only at 10:30 at night that I heard the garage door open. I ran to the door. Lily walked in with a huge smile on her face, carrying a giant bag full of stuffed animals and toys from an amusement park. "Mommy, it was so fun. Daddy took me to Six Flags. There was a roller coaster, cotton candy, and look how many animals I won." Behind her, James walked in calmly, with that arrogant smile on his lips, knowing exactly what he had done. "Where were you?" I screamed, unable to control the tone of my voice. "Why didn't you warn me I was desperate, thinking something had happened?" "Relax, Sarah," he said with absolute indifference. "I am her father. I have every right to take my own daughter for an outing." "But you had to tell me." I was worried. "For what?" "To ruin the outing with your drama." Lily was standing between the two of us, looking at us with wide eyes, confused and scared. I immediately lowered my voice, forcing a calm I did not feel. "Go take a bath and brush your teeth, love. It is already very late to sleep." After she went up, I turned to James. It was then that I smelled it. That scent. Female perfume. Soft but unmistakable. Impregnated in his shirt. It was not men's cologne. It was something floral, delicate, clearly a woman's. Our eyes met. I knew. He knew that I knew, and he did not care in the slightest to hide it. "Did you notice?" he said with a cruel smile. "Did you really believe I was going to live forever trapped with a mediocre woman like you?" The words were like a slap. But I did not answer. I did not give him the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. I simply turned my back and went up the stairs, feeling the weight of the humiliation crushing me. That same night, after tucking Lily in, I noticed something strange that had been intriguing me for weeks. James had given her a brand new tablet, state-of-the-art, expensive, with a big screen and without a single scratch. But Lily kept using the old tablet, the one I had bought 2 years ago on sale. That had fallen on the floor several times and now had the screen all cracked. Whenever I went into her room, I saw the old tablet hidden under the pillow or inside her school backpack. Once, I even caught her holding the broken device against her chest while she slept as if it were a stuffed animal. "Why don't you use the new tablet your dad gave you, my love?" I asked her once with genuine curiosity. She just shrugged. "I like this one more." "But the screen is all broken. Does it not hurt your finger?" "No, I am careful." It seemed strange to me, but I did not insist. Kids get attached to old things sometimes, I thought. Maybe it was just that. I had no idea that old tablet held the biggest secret of all. The following weeks were a blur of anxiety court paperwork and desperate attempts to prepare my defense. Linda made me gather all kinds of evidence that could help my case. Photos of Lily happy with me, affectionate messages she had sent me, drawings she made with, "I love you so much, Mommy," written in crooked handwriting. But all that seemed so weak compared to the proof James had. The first mediation hearing was scheduled. I arrived at the courthouse with my legs trembling, wearing the only formal clothes I had. Black pants and a simple white blouse, already a little faded. Linda was waiting for me at the entrance, and even she did not look very optimistic. The mediation room was small and stuffy, with a long table in the center and uncomfortable chairs. The mediator was a lady of about 60 years, with a tired expression of someone who had already seen thousands of couples destroy each other. On the other side of the table was James, impeccable in his navy blue suit, next to Robert Stone, a man of about 45 years, gray hair at the temples, expensive gray suit, silk tie, and a predator's gaze. The mediator tried to start with a conciliatory tone, talking about finding a middle ground that was good for everyone, especially for the child. But even before she finished, Robert Stone interrupted her. "With all due respect, Madam Mediator, but there is no middle ground to discuss here," he said with a firm and authoritative voice. "My client has substantial and irrefutable proof that Mrs. Sarah is incapable of providing an adequate environment for the minor. He is being extremely generous by not filing an additional lawsuit for parental negligence." I felt my face burn with humiliation. Linda tried to intervene. "Mr. Stone, with all due respect, those proofs you speak of are circumstantial and easily refutable. Mrs. Sarah is a dedicated mother who leaves the house in deplorable conditions," he interrupted, opening a folder and spreading the photos on the table, "who spends money compulsively on luxury items while neglecting the basic needs of her daughter, who, according to the evaluation of a respected mental health professional, demonstrates worrying patterns of emotional instability." He slid a copy of the psychological report across the table, with that photo of Dr. Chloe in the header, smiling professionally. "Our request is simple and reasonable," continued Robert Stone. "Full custody for the father, who is financially stable, emotionally balanced, and genuinely concerned for the well-being of the child. Regarding the assets, my client is willing to allow Mrs. Sarah to remain in the residence for up to 3 months after the sentence, time enough for her to find another place to live." "Another place?" My voice came out like a squeak. "That is my house." "That house," said Robert Stone with a condescending smile, "was acquired exclusively with my client's income. You did not contribute financially at any time, therefore you have no right to it." Linda slammed her folder on the table. "My client gave up her career to take care of the home and her daughter according to a mutual agreement between the couple. That contribution is as valuable as valuable." Robert Stone let out a mocking laugh. "Leaving dirty dishes piled up and toys scattered is a valuable contribution." The mediator tried to intervene, asking for calm, but it was useless. The meeting had turned into a war, and I was completely unarmed. The mediation failed miserably. We left there with the certainty that the case would go to trial. And in the trial, I knew. The chances of me winning were practically zero. In the following days, I tried to discover more about this Dr. Chloe Andrews. I asked Linda to investigate. I searched on social media. I tried anything that could unmask that woman, but I found nothing. Her credentials were impeccable. She had a registered office. She was an active member of the psychology board. She had publications in respected academic journals. There was nothing we could use to question her professional legitimacy. "Sarah, I know it is frustrating," Linda told me in one of our meetings, "but we cannot attack her credentials. They are too solid. Our only chance is to try to discredit the content of the report itself, argue that remote observations are not sufficient for such a serious diagnosis." "But will that work?" She hesitated before answering. "Honestly, probably not." The truth, raw and simple. I was going to lose Lily, not for being a bad mother, but because my husband had money, an unscrupulous lawyer, and a mistress willing to lie under oath. The trial was scheduled for 3 weeks later in the capital. Those days were the most torturous of my life. I could barely eat. I lost weight rapidly. My hair started falling out in clumps in the shower. I developed chronic insomnia, spending entire nights awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining what it would be like to live without my daughter. At home, James intensified his psychological campaign. He started whispering things to Lily that I only discovered later when she repeated them innocently. Daddy said when I live with him, I am going to have a much bigger room. Daddy said Mommy does not feel well, and that is why she is sad. Daddy said if I live with him, I can have a puppy. Every phrase was a poisoned arrow, sowing doubt in the mind of my little daughter, making her believe that life would be better without me. One night, about a week before the trial, I could not hold it in anymore. After tucking Lily in, I collapsed. I sat on the floor of my room with my back against the wall and cried desperately. I cried for everything I had lost, for the marriage I discovered was a lie, for the trust that was betrayed, for the dignity that was trampled, and mainly for the daughter who was about to be snatched from me. It was then that I heard light footsteps in the hall. The door opened slowly and Lily appeared, with her unicorn pajamas, holding that old broken tablet against her chest. Mommy. Her voice was so small, so worried. I quickly tried to dry my tears, force a smile, pretend everything was fine, but it was useless. My face was soaked, my eyes swollen. Sorry, Princess. Mommy is just a little bit sad. Lily walked toward me and sat on my lap. She hugged my neck with her thin little arms and said something that broke and healed my heart at the same time. I'm not going to let Daddy hurt you, Mommy. I promise you. I hugged my daughter with all the strength I had, crying now for a different reason. She did not fully understand what was happening, but she understood enough to know I was suffering, and she wanted to protect me. If only I had known in that moment that she was already protecting me in a way I would never imagine. The day of the trial dawned gray and cold, as if even the weather conspired to make that day even gloomier. I woke up at 5 a.m, after another night practically without sleep, with a churning stomach and trembling hands. I dressed in the only formal outfit I had. I tried to hide the deep dark circles with a little makeup I borrowed from my sister, and I tied my hair in a simple ponytail. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and saw a woman I barely recognized, pale, thin, with dull eyes and an expression of anticipated defeat. I left Lily at my sister Karen's house. My daughter hugged me tightly before I left and whispered in my ear, "Everything will be okay, Mommy. Trust me." I did not understand what she meant by that. I thought she was just a child trying to console her mother with sweet words. I kissed her forehead and left feeling my heart breaking with every step that took me away from her. The courthouse was immense and intimidating, an old building of imposing architecture, with tall columns at the entrance and marble stairs that seemed to never end. Inside the halls echoed with the sound of hurried footsteps of lawyers, the murmurs of families waiting for trials, the stifled crying of those who had already lost their battles. The courtroom was even more terrifying. Very high ceilings, walls lined with dark wood, heavy mahogany benches, and the seal of justice immense and golden hanging behind the judge's chair. Everything there was made to intimidate, to make you feel small before the weight of the law. I sat next to Linda at the defense table. On the other side, James was impeccable in his navy blue suit, looking confident and in control. Robert Stone beside him organized documents with precise and efficient movements. In the gallery, I noticed some people I did not know, probably journalists. My case had leaked somehow, and now I would be humiliated not only before the judge, but before strangers who would write about my life in the pages of the newspapers. "All rise," announced the bailiff. The judge entered. He was a man of about 60 years, completely gray hair, reading glasses on his nose, a severe and tired expression of someone who had seen thousands of human tragedies pass through his room. He sat down, banged the gavel, and declared the session open. "Case number such and such, family court. Contested divorce petition, plaintiff James Peterson. Defendant Sarah Peterson." The words resonated through the room like a death sentence. Robert Stone was the first to present his case, and it was brilliant. In the cruelest and most efficient sense of the word, he spoke with eloquence, with absolute conviction, weaving a convincing narrative of a hard-working and dedicated man married to a negligent and unstable woman. He projected the photos of the messy house on a big screen for everyone to see. Enlarged like that, they looked even worse. The sink full of dirty dishes, the piled-up clothes, the toys scattered all over the living room. "Your Honor," said Robert Stone with a voice loaded with fake concern, "these images were taken at the couple's residence at various times. They are not isolated situations. They are the pattern of behavior of Mrs. Sarah, a house in complete abandonment, while she herself admits not working, not having any professional obligation to justify such negligence with the home." Then came the credit card statements, also projected for everyone to see. High amounts, luxury stores, expensive restaurants. "While my client worked tirelessly to provide for the family," continued Robert Stone, "his wife spent compulsively on frivolities. Expensive bags, jewelry, sophisticated dinners, all with the credit card she had permission to use only for emergencies and household needs. But I didn't—" I started to whisper. Linda put her hand on my arm, silencing me. "It is not our turn yet," she murmured. And then came the part I feared most. Robert Stone called his expert witness. The prosecution calls Dr. Chloe Andrews to testify. The back door opened and she entered. The woman who had been the key to all this destruction walked toward the witness stand with firm and confident steps. She was beautiful and professional, an elegant gray suit, straight black hair, tied in a low bun, discreet makeup, a leather briefcase under her arm. When she passed by me, our eyes met briefly. And I saw the slightest smile at the corner of her mouth, the glint of satisfaction in her eyes. She was enjoying this, and then I felt it. That perfume, the same floral perfume I had smelled on James's shirt. My blood froze. It was her. His mistress was the psychologist who was destroying me in court. Dr. Chloe took the oath, her voice clear and firm. "I swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God." Lie. The word screamed in my head, but it did not come out of my mouth. Robert Stone began the interrogation. "Dr. Chloe, can you explain your qualifications?" "Certainly. I am a clinical psychologist graduated from the University of Chicago with a specialization in child and family psychology. I have a master's degree in the area, and I have been registered with the Psychology Board for 12 years. I maintain a private practice and also provide consulting for legal cases when requested. All true, all real credentials." She was not pretending to be a psychologist. She really was one, which made her even more dangerous, because no one would question her word. "And in the present case, what was your evaluation methodology?" "I performed naturalistic observations of the interaction between Mrs. Sarah and her daughter Lily over a period of 3 months. I observed in various public environments: supermarket, park, school entrance and exit, mall. I also briefly interviewed Mr. James about his wife's behavior at home." Lie. She never observed me. Or rather, maybe she observed me occasionally, but not in the scientific and systematic way she claimed. "And what were your conclusions, Doctor?" Dr. Chloe opened her folder, took out a document, and began reading with a professional and distant voice. My observations revealed a consistent and worrying pattern. Mrs. Sarah demonstrates clear signs of emotional instability that directly affect her ability to exercise motherhood in a healthy way. Every word was a stab wound. On several occasions, I observed Mrs. Sarah yelling at the child in public for trivial reasons. For example, in the supermarket, when the child took an item that was not on the list, the mother reacted disproportionately, pulling the child's arm with force and raising her voice aggressively. Lie. I never yelled at Lily in the supermarket. The only time I pulled her arm was when she almost ran into the street without looking, and I pulled her back out of a protective reflex. On another occasion in the park, I observed Mrs. Sarah completely oblivious to her daughter, absorbed in her cell phone, ignoring when the child asked for attention. When Lily fell and hurt herself slightly, the mother's reaction was delayed and exaggerated, reaching hysteria, which frightened the child even more. More lies. I was checking messages about the grocery list, and when Lily fell, I ran immediately. My reaction was not hysterical. It was that of a worried mother. Dr. Chloe continued relentlessly. I also observed signs of emotional neglect. The child frequently seemed downcast, withdrawn in the presence of the mother. There are indications that Mrs. Sarah's emotional instability is causing psychological damage to the child. My vision blurred with tears. I wanted to scream. I wanted to jump and snatch those papers from her hands. But Linda held my arm tightly. "Hold on," she whispered. "Do not react." "What is your professional recommendation, doctor?" asked Robert Stone. Dr. Chloe looked me straight in the eyes when answering, and her look was full of fake pity. "For the psychological well-being and healthy development of the minor, Lily, I strongly recommend that full custody be granted to the father, Mr. James, who proves to be the stable and balanced parental figure the child needs." The judge's gavel banged. "Thank you, doctor. The defense may cross-examine." Linda stood up, and I saw in her eyes that she was going to do the best she could, but we both knew she was fighting a giant. Linda walked toward the witness stand with firm steps, but I saw the tension in her shoulders. She knew she had an almost impossible task ahead, discrediting a professional with impeccable credentials without seeming desperate. "Dr. Chloe," she began with a calm voice, "you mentioned that you conducted observations for 3 months. Can you specify how many times you observed my client?" Dr. Chloe did not hesitate. "Approximately 15 observation sessions, each lasting between 1 and 3 hours. And at no time did you introduce yourself to Mrs. Sarah or request permission to observe her?" "No. As I explained, naturalistic observations require that the subject is not aware of being evaluated to ensure authentic and unrehearsed behavior." "I understand." Linda flipped through some papers. "And you were hired directly by Mr. James to perform this evaluation, correct?" "I was hired professionally, yes, as is common in legal cases." "And how much were you paid for that service?" Robert Stone stood up immediately. "Objection, Your Honor. The witness's professional compensation is irrelevant." "Sustained," said the judge. "Counselor, keep the questions relevant to the merit of the evaluation." Linda nodded, but did not give up. "Dr. Chloe, would it be fair to say that your observations capture only isolated moments outside the full context of Mrs. Sarah's life?" "All psychological observations capture specific moments. Counselor, it is through the observation of multiple moments that we identify behavioral patterns." "But you were never in Mrs. Sarah's house. You never interviewed her formally. You never talked to other people who live with her daily, like school teachers, neighbors, family members." For the first time, Dr. Chloe hesitated for a fraction of a second. "The naturalistic observation methodology does not require—" "Please answer only the question, yes or no." "No, I did not interview other sources." "So your report is based exclusively on your personal and subjective observations of isolated moments in public places. They are professional observations based on my experience." "Thank you. No more questions." It was a brave effort, but I saw on the judge's face that it had not been enough. He kept that neutral expression, but his notes seemed to favor the psychologist's initial testimony more than the questions raised by Linda. Then it was my turn to testify. I walked to the witness stand with my legs shaking so much I thought I was going to fall. I took the oath with a voice so low that the judge asked me to repeat it louder. Linda asked me kind questions first, giving me the chance to tell my version. I explained about the photos that were taken when I was sick. I explained about this credit card that James used and put in my name. I explained that I was always a present and dedicated mother, that Lily was everything to me. But when it was Robert Stone's turn to interrogate me, it was like being thrown into an arena with a hungry lion. "Mrs. Sarah," he began with that fake tone of concern, "do you have any professional training, any college degree?" "No." "I stopped studying when I got married." "And do you work?" "No, I take care of the house and Lily." "So it is fair to say that you depend completely financially on Mr. James?" "Well, yes, but it was an agreement between us when Lily was born." "Please just yes or no." "Yes." "Do you deny that these photos," He showed the enlarged images. Were taken in your house. No, they were taken there, but... Yes or no, Mrs. Sarah? Yes, but I was sick. Do you have any documented proof that you were sick? Doctor's note, prescription. Anything. My voice failed. No. Do you deny that these expenses, he pointed to the statements, were made with the card in your name? It was not me who bought those things. But the card was in your name. Yes, but... Thank you. Now, Mrs. Sarah. He got closer with predator eyes. Do you consider yourself emotionally stable? Yes. Then can you explain this to me? He held up a large photo. It was me, in my bedroom, with messy hair, red face, mouth open in a scream. I was clearly crying and screaming hysterically. My heart stopped. I remembered that night. It was when James had provoked me. He had insulted me. He had called me useless until I finally broke. And he had recorded it. He had recorded my reaction on purpose, provoking me until I exploded, just to have that photo. I tried to explain, but my voice came out choked. Is this the behavior of an emotionally stable person? Mrs. Sarah, is this what your 8-year-old daughter should be seeing? You do not understand. He provoked me? So you admit you lost control. I was being humiliated in my own home. So you admit you scream and have fits of rage. No, it is not like that. But here is the proof, isn't it? A woman out of control, hysterical, exactly as Dr. Chloe described in her professional report. The tears started to fall. I tried to hold on. I tried to maintain composure. But it was impossible. Every word of his was torture, every question a trap from which I could not escape. No more questions, Your Honor, said Robert Stone with a satisfied smile, returning to his table. He had just proved exactly what they wanted, that I was unstable, emotional, hysterical. I stepped down from the witness stand with trembling legs, feeling like I had dug my own grave. The rest of the trial passed like a blur. More witnesses, more evidence, more humiliations, until finally, at the end of that first day, the judge banged the gavel. The sentencing hearing will be next week. Everyone must be present. Dismissed. I left there completely destroyed. Linda tried to console me in the hallway, but her own words betrayed her desperation. Sarah, it is not over yet. We have a week to prepare. Prepare for what? My voice came out hollow, lifeless. I lost. We know it. She did not deny it. She just squeezed my hand in silence. That night was the longest of my life. I returned home, to that house that soon would no longer be mine, and I sat in the darkness of the living room, hugging my knees, crying in silence. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Lily came down. Even though it was very late, she should not be awake. She had stayed at Karen's house, but my sister brought her back because she insisted she needed to be with me. Mommy. I lifted my face. She was there, with her unicorn pajamas, holding that old tablet with the cracked screen. Why aren't you sleeping, Princess? She did not answer. She just came toward me and sat on my lap. Too big for that now, but still my baby. She hugged me and whispered, Don't cry, Mommy. I am going to fix this. I did not understand what she meant, but I did not ask either. I just hugged her against me, smelling her strawberry shampoo, memorizing every detail because I feared that soon those memories would be all I would have left of her. The week leading up to the final hearing was a nightmare in slow motion. I barely ate. I barely slept. I walked around the house like a ghost. James, on the other hand, was visibly satisfied. I saw his smile when he thought I was not looking. The way he already talked about when Lily comes to live with me, as if my defeat was absolute and inevitable. And it probably was. On the eve of the hearing, I could not sleep a single minute. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, while my mind went over all the moments of humiliation, all the lies that had been told about me, all the injustice of that situation. At 5 a.m, I gave up trying to sleep. I got up and went to Lily's room. She was sleeping deeply, with a serene face, oblivious to the nightmare that was about to destroy our lives. I sat on the edge of her bed and just watched her. I memorized every detail, the freckles on her nose, the long eyelashes, the way she held her breath before sighing in her sleep. If this was one of the last moments we would have like this, I wanted to record every second in my memory. The old tablet was there, half hidden under the pillow. For an instant I thought about taking it and seeing what was on there that made Lily so attached to that broken device, but I did not. I felt it would be an invasion of her privacy, even if she was just a child. If only I had looked. If only I had known what was there. Kept like a precious secret. It would have changed everything sooner. But I did not look. I just kissed my daughter's forehead and left the room to prepare for what would be the worst day of my life. I put on the same outfit as always. I didn't have another one. I tried to hide the dark circles with makeup, but it was useless. My face reflected exactly what I felt. Defeat, exhaustion, despair. Lily woke up and came down for breakfast. She was strangely calm, almost serene, which worried me. "Are you okay, Princess?" I asked, stroking her hair while she ate toast. She looked at me with those big brown eyes and nodded. "I am fine, Mommy, and you are going to be fine too." I did not understand that confidence in her voice, but I did not question it. I thought it was just innocent childhood, the inability to fully comprehend the gravity of the situation. "You are going to stay at your aunt's house again today, okay?" I said, kissing her face. "No, Mommy, I need to go with you today." My heart shrank. "My love, the court is no place for you. It is going to be boring and I need to go, Mommy. Please." There was so much intensity in her eyes that it scared me. "Lily, you cannot. I do not want you to see the things that are going to be said." "Mommy, trust me. I need to be there." But I stood firm. I was not going to expose my daughter to that circus of horror. I left her at Karen's house, ignoring her protests and the way she held my hand tightly when saying goodbye. "Everything will be okay, Mommy," she said one more time before I left. I arrived at the court an hour early. I sat on a bench in the hallway, shivering despite the heat. Linda appeared a few minutes later, with a folder under her arm and a grim expression. "Sarah, we need to talk before going in." We went to an empty room. She sat across from me and held my hands. "I am not going to lie to you. The odds are not in our favor, but I want you to know that I fought as hard as I could, and I am going to keep fighting until the end." I nodded, not trusting my voice to answer. "Whatever happens today, this does not define you as a mother. You are a good mother, Sarah. It is the system that is failing." Her words were kind, but they did not alleviate the pain, because in the end it did not matter if I was a good mother. What mattered was that I was about to lose my daughter. We entered the courtroom. It was even more crowded than the last time. More people in the gallery, more journalists, more curious eyes ready to witness my final humiliation. James was already sitting with Robert Stone talking in a low voice. He threw me a look of superiority when I passed, and in that look was everything. He had won, and he knew it. In the gallery I noticed Dr. Chloe. She was not dressed professionally today. She wore an elegant dress, discreet, and her loose hair fell over her shoulders. But the perfume was the same. That floral perfume I had smelled on James's shirt. They did not even try to hide anymore. The judge entered and everyone stood up. He sat down, banged the gavel, and the session began. Today we will proceed with the closing arguments before the sentencing. I would like to start with the plaintiff. Robert Stone stood up. He summarized the whole case with mastery. Every photo, every expense, every testimony, every allegation of instability. He painted a devastating picture of an incompetent, irresponsible, emotionally disturbed woman, incapable of taking care of a child. And then it was Linda's turn. She did the best she could. She appealed to the heart, to justice, to common sense. She spoke about the unconditional love of a mother, about the years of dedication, about how everything had been manipulated and distorted. But even I felt that her words sounded hollow before the weight of the evidence against me. When she finished and sat down, the judge adjusted his glasses and opened the thick folder in front of him. This was the moment. The sentence. I closed my eyes, preparing to hear the words that would destroy me. After a careful analysis of all the evidence presented by both parties, My heart was beating so fast I could barely hear. And considering especially the expert report of Dr. Chloe Andrews, as well as the behavior observed of the defendant during this judicial process, the tears started to fall. I could not hold them back anymore. This court concludes that the best interest of the minor Lily will be served by... And then it happened. A voice cut the solemn silence of the court. Wait. It was a childish voice, high-pitched, strong. Everyone in the room turned their heads at the same time. At the back door, which had been left ajar, was Lily, my daughter, in her school uniform, backpack on her back, holding something in her hands. She had entered alone, without anyone noticing. My heart stopped completely. Lily! James's voice came out like a choked scream. He stood up so fast the chair almost fell over. What are you doing here? Get out immediately. But Lily did not move. She stood there, small but determined, holding that old tablet with the cracked screen against her chest. Your Honor, she said with her voice trembling but surprisingly clear, I need to show something. Please. The judge's gavel had been suspended in the air. He looked at the child with an expression of complete surprise. How did this child get in here? Robert Stone stood up, indignant. Your Honor, this is completely irregular. This session is private. A minor cannot simply interrupt. I came in alone, said Lily, her voice becoming firmer. I took a taxi from my aunt's house to here. I needed to come. I felt my world spinning. My 8-year-old daughter had come alone in a taxi to the court. How, why, Your Honor, continued Robert Stone, with a loud and irritated voice. I demand that this child be removed immediately. This is a farce, a desperate attempt to... Silence! The judge banged the gavel with force. Counselor Stone, sit down. The lawyer hesitated, but obeyed. The judge turned his gaze to Lily, and his expression had changed. There was curiosity there, and maybe a flash of suspicion that something important was about to happen. Child, he said with a softer voice. What is your name? Lily. Lily Peterson. I am their daughter. She pointed to James and me. And what do you need to show Lily? She held up the old tablet. I recorded something my mom does not know about, something that shows the truth. The entire courtroom fell into absolute silence. You could hear a pin drop. James's face had turned white as paper. I saw the panic in his eyes, pure and absolute. And then I saw when he looked quickly at Dr. Chloe in the gallery, and they both exchanged a look of horror. They knew. Whatever was on that tablet, they knew what it was. This is absurd. James finally found his voice. Your Honor, my daughter is a child. She does not understand what she is doing. This is clearly a manipulation by... Mr. James, I am not going to ask again. Sit down and keep quiet, or I will order you removed from the room. James sat down, but his eyes were fixed on Lily with a terrifying intensity. The judge looked at the bailiff. Bring the child here, and bring equipment to connect that device to our monitors. A bailiff walked toward Lily and gently took her hand, guiding her to the front. She passed by me and our eyes met. There was something in her eyes, courage, determination, and a confidence that left me confused. Trust me, Mommy, she whispered as she passed. Another bailiff took the tablet and began connecting it to the court's projection system. It took a few minutes, every second seeming like an eternity. James was visibly sweating now. Dr. Chloe had stood up from the gallery as if she wanted to leave, but the door was blocked by curious people. Finally, the large screen on the court wall flickered. The tablet menu image appeared. It was old, slow, but it worked. Which file, little one? Asked the bailiff. Lily pointed. That one, the video from March 14th. The bailiff clicked. The screen went black for a second, and then the video began. The first thing that appeared was a shaky and tilted image of our living room. The angle was low, as if the camera was hidden behind something. I recognized it immediately. It was behind the large vase where Lily loved to hide when we played hide and seek. For a few seconds, only the empty sofa and part of the bookshelf were visible. And then 2 figures entered the frame, James and Dr. Chloe. A murmur of astonishment ran through the entire courtroom, but it was not the professional and impeccable Dr. Chloe who had testified a few days before. It was a woman in casual clothes, jeans and a low-cut blouse, hair loose, laughing while James pulled her by the waist. And then he kissed her. A long kiss. Deep. Passionate. "Oh my God," I heard someone whisper in the gallery. At the table next to me, Linda had leaned forward, with eyes wide open. On the other side, Robert Stone was pale, clearly realizing that his case was crumbling before his eyes. The audio began to play, and Dr. Chloe's voice echoed through the courtroom. "Are you absolutely sure the plan is going to work? Your wife won't suspect anything." James's voice, clear as crystal. "Sarah is too stupid to suspect. Completely submissive. I already transferred almost all the money from the joint account to your account. When the judge gives the sentence, we are going to have everything. Lily's custody, the house, the savings, everything." I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. I was hearing James admit, in front of everyone, that he had stolen our money, planned every detail of this charade. In the video, Dr. Chloe sat on his lap, putting her arms around his neck. "And what about my testimony? Do you really think it was convincing enough?" "It was perfect," said James, kissing her, "especially because I have those photos of her losing control. I am going to provoke her again before the final trial. I am going to insult her, humiliate her until she explodes in front of the judge. That way your report will seem absolutely accurate. She will behave exactly as you described, hysterical, unstable, out of control." Tears ran down my face, but this time they were not just from pain. It was also disbelief, rage, and a beginning of hope. Dr. Chloe laughed in the video. "You are a genius, and after we get everything, how long do you think it will take to get rid of the girl? Because honestly, James, I do not want to raise your daughter." My blood froze. Had I heard right? Were they planning not only to take Lily from me, but to get rid of her? In the video, James shrugged. "We put her in a boarding school as soon as possible. Or send her to some distant relative. I don't know. We'll manage. The important thing is to destroy Sarah completely. She deserves nothing. Absolutely nothing." The video showed the two toasting with glasses of wine, laughing cruelly. And then the screen went black. The silence in the court was sepulchral. No one moved. No one breathed. I looked at Lily, who was standing next to the bailiff. She was looking at me, with tears running down her little face, but also with an expression of determination. My little daughter, my hero, she had saved me. The silence was broken by the noise of a chair scraping violently against the floor. It was Dr. Chloe, trying desperately to get out of the row of seats in the gallery, fighting to get to the door. "Stop that woman!" The judge's voice thundered through the room with an authority and fury that scared everyone. "Now!" Two officers ran and intercepted Dr. Chloe before she could leave. She started screaming, crying, struggling. "No! You don't understand. He forced me to do this. Silence." The judge banged the gavel with so much force that the thunderclap echoed through the whole room. James was standing, hands in his hair, in total panic. "Your Honor, I can explain. That video was taken out of context. We were just—" "Sit down immediately, Mr. James." James collapsed into the chair. His face was wet with sweat, his eyes wide with terror. The man who had entered that room so confident, so arrogant, now was completely destroyed. Robert Stone had his head in his hands. He knew his career had just crumbled along with the case. The judge looked at the bailiff holding Lily. "Bring that child to my bench. Now." The bailiff gently guided Lily to the front. The judge stepped down from his high chair, something completely irregular, and knelt at her height. "Lily," he said with a surprisingly kind voice, "you were very, very brave, and very smart. Can you tell me when and why you made this recording?" Lily wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "It was a few months ago. Daddy said he was going to work late, but I heard his car come back very early. I wanted to show him my new drawing, so I went down. But then I saw him coming in with that lady." She pointed to Dr. Chloe. "And they kissed, and I got scared." Why did you get scared? Because I knew it was wrong, that Daddy was doing something bad to Mommy. Her voice became more trembling. So I hid behind the living room vase, that big one, and I remembered that my mom always said that if we see someone doing something bad, we have to have proof, so I took my old tablet and recorded. The judge nodded. And why didn't you show it to your mom? Because in the video, Daddy said Mommy couldn't know. He said it was a secret, so I thought I had to keep the secret. New tears fell. But then Daddy started saying Mommy was bad. And that lady also said Mommy was bad. And that is not true. My mom is the best mom in the world. She takes care of me. She makes yummy food. She hugs me when I have nightmares. She helps me with homework. She is good. Lily's voice rose, full of passion and childish indignation. Then today I heard my aunt talking on the phone that the judge was going to take Mommy away from me, and I cannot let that happen. So I took my money that I had saved, called a taxi, and came here to show the truth. The judge remained silent for a moment, just looking at that brave 8-year-old girl. Then he put his hand on her shoulder. You did the right thing, Lily. Thank you very much for trusting in justice. He stood up and returned to his chair. His expression was no longer neutral. He was furious. Officer, handcuff Mr. James and Ms. Chloe Andrews immediately. What? James screamed. Your Honor, this is absurd. You cannot. I can, and I will. The judge practically roared. And if you open your mouth one more time, I will add contempt of court to your charges. The officers approached with handcuffs. Dr. Chloe was crying uncontrollably while they held her hands behind her back. James did not react. He just stood still, with empty eyes, while the handcuffs clicked on his wrists. The judge looked at Robert Stone. Counselor Robert Stone, you will be cited by the Bar Association Ethics Council. I have strong suspicions that you were aware of this scheme, or at least were negligent in verifying the veracity of the evidence you presented. Robert Stone did not answer. He just lowered his head. Then the judge looked at me, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, someone looked at me with true compassion. Mrs. Sarah, on behalf of this court, I deeply apologize for what you have been subjected to. This has been one of the most shameful cases of judicial manipulation I have witnessed in my 30 years of career. I could not speak. I could only cry. By the force of the irrefutable evidence presented by the minor Lily, he continued now with a formal voice, this court revokes all accusations made against Mrs. Sarah. The divorce petition filed by Mr. James is denied. However, I authorize Mrs. Sarah to immediately file for divorce for cause against him, with all her rights preserved and expanded. Bang of the gavel. Full, complete, and unconditional custody of the minor Lily is granted to her mother, Mrs. Sarah. Mr. James is prevented from any contact with the child until he answers criminally for the crimes he committed. Another bang. I order the immediate blocking and freezing of all bank accounts and assets in the name of Mr. James and Ms. Chloe Andrews. A complete audit will be performed to track all the money stolen from Mrs. Sarah. And everything, absolutely everything, will be returned with monetary correction and substantial compensation for moral damages. Another bang. And finally, I order the immediate opening of a full criminal investigation against Mr. James Peterson and Ms. Chloe Andrews for the crimes of conspiracy, procedural fraud, perjury, misappropriation of marital assets, false identity, and attempted manipulation of justice, held without bail for both. Final bang. Take them away. The officers began dragging James and Dr. Chloe out. She was screaming and crying. James was silent, defeated, destroyed. When he passed by me, our eyes met for a second. There was no longer arrogance there, only the awareness of what he had lost. As soon as the door closed behind them, I stood up unsteadily. My legs barely held me. I looked at Lily, who was still near the judge's table. Lily. She ran toward me and I took her in my arms, hugging her so tight I feared hurting her. I fell to my knees right there, in the middle of the court, holding my daughter against my chest, sobbing uncontrollably. You saved me. I whispered between sobs. "You saved me, my princess. I wasn't going to let them hurt you, Mommy," she said, also crying. "You are the best mom in the world." Linda knelt beside us, with tears running down her face. She put her hands on our heads. "You won. You won." The months that followed were a whirlwind of changes. The story of the broken tablet, as the media began to call it, became national news. Newspapers, websites, TV shows. Everyone wanted to tell the story of the 8-year-old girl who saved her mother from a cruel conspiracy. But I protected Lily from all that. I refused all interviews, all photo requests. My daughter was not going to be turned into a spectacle. The criminal investigation was quick and devastating for James and Dr. Chloe. They discovered they had been having an affair for almost 3 years. They discovered that the whole plan to destroy me had been meticulously prepared for over a year. James had actually transferred more than $500,000 to accounts in Dr. Chloe's name over the months, all the money from our joint account, plus loans he took out, using our house as collateral. Everything was frozen, tracked, and returned to me, along with compensation for moral damages that the judge established at a value that left me speechless. James was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Dr. Chloe received 8 years, and her professional license was permanently revoked. Robert Stone had his law license revoked and answered for complicity, receiving 3 years. I sold the house where so much pain had happened. I could not stay there anymore. I bought a smaller but cozy apartment, just for Lily and me. With the money I had left over, I invested a part and used another to finally realize an old dream. I opened a small sewing studio. It had been something I loved doing before I got married. But James made me believe it was a waste of time. Now I made custom clothes, fixed garments, did alterations. I didn't earn much, but it was mine. It was independence. It was dignity. Lily went back to being the happy child she always was. The child psychologist I hired, a real one, ethical and careful, said my daughter demonstrated impressive resilience. "She saved you because she loves you unconditionally, Sarah, and children who are loved like that develop extraordinary inner strength." The old tablet with the cracked screen, I kept it in a special box, like a family heirloom. One day, when Lily is older, I will give it back to her and tell her the full story of how a broken device saved our family. Today, 6 months after that day in court, I am sitting in my studio, sewing a party dress, when Lily arrives from school. "Mommy, look," she runs toward me, holding a paper. "I got an A on my essay." I take the paper and read. The theme was my hero. She wrote about me, about how I take care of her, how I make the best pancakes in the world, how I hug her when she has nightmares, how I never gave up even when everything seemed lost. Tears come back to my eyes, but they are good tears. "You know you are my hero, right?" I say, pulling her for a hug. "If it weren't for you, I would have lost everything." "I just showed the truth, Mommy. The truth always wins in the end." I look at her little face, so pure, and at the same time, so wise. She is only 8 years old, but she already understands things that many adults never comprehend. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night, sweating cold, dreaming that I am in that courtroom, hearing the judge give the sentence against me. But then I get up, I go to Lily's room, I see her sleeping peacefully. And I remember that that was just a nightmare that almost came true. Almost. But it didn't, because my daughter, with her courage and her pure love, did not allow it. I learned so many lessons from this terrible experience. I learned that trusting blindly can be dangerous. I learned that the people we love are sometimes capable of hurting us in the worst possible ways. I learned that the system can be manipulated by those who have money and lack scruples. But I also learned that the truth has a weight that no lie can hold forever. I learned that true love, the love of a mother for a daughter and a daughter for a mother, is the most powerful force that exists. And I learned that I should never, ever, underestimate the courage and intelligence of a child who loves. James is serving his sentence. I don't think about him anymore. He is part of a past I left behind, of a life that no longer exists. Dr. Chloe, too. They chose the path of lies and cruelty, and now they pay the price. I chose the path of truth and love, and although it was painful, it was the right path, today. When I look at Lily, I see not only my daughter, but my Savior. And I promise myself every day that I am going to spend the rest of my life being the mother she deserves. Not perfect, because no one is, but present, loving, true. And regarding that old tablet with the cracked screen, it is still kept in the special box, a reminder that sometimes the most broken and despised objects hold the most precious treasures, just like people.